Great. Welcome, everyone, to today's Culture of Research and Education webinar. Trident's Marketing Communication Manager, Daniel Sloan, and we're really excited to be bringing you, tonight's webinar. It's Alumni Roundtable, Navigating the Challenges of Your Doctoral Study. It's going to be hosted by faculty member Dr. Kennedy Maranga, and 3 alumni from the program. Dr. Angela Pettit is on the panel, Dr. Shelly Spencer, and Dr. Harvey Williams, who he's not on the panel but promised to be here shortly. The core webinar series is designed to provide faculty, students, and alumni an opportunity to share their research and scholarship with the Trident community. By fostering a culture of professional development and idea exchange, participants will have access to a valuable forum for lifelong learning. This university-wide effort is led by Trident's doctoral studies directors. So those of you who come to our core webinars often, we're doing things a bit differently today. It's going to be an alumni roundtable. Dr. Maranga is really going to be threading the needle with a lot of great questions, and we'll be working in questions from the audience at different points during the hour tonight. So just ask questions as soon as you have them, and we'll get to them as soon as we can. To ask questions, you can either type them in the question box or raise your hand, and I'll call on you, and you can ask your question. To introduce tonight's host, it's Dr. Kennedy Maranga is a doctoral professor in Trident's Doctor of Education program. He recently joined the university and holds a PhD in public policy and administration, and has taught at various universities at all program levels. He's held numerous roles outside of academia, including founding and running his own law practice and policy analyst for the state of Kansas. His research interests include leadership, adult learning, student retention, and student success. Welcome, Dr. Maranga. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sloan, for that introduction. I really want to welcome all of you here, those who have attended this evening. Specifically, I would like to introduce our alumni who are our presenters. But before that, I would like to recognize our Dean of the College of Education, Dr. Heidi Lynn Smith. Of course, alongside with Mr. Daniel Sloan, who have worked extremely hard to make this webinar successful. Well, I wouldn't like to take long. I'm sure all of you would like to hear from our great presenters. I would like Dr. Pettit to start her introduction. And then we'll start from there. Dr. Pettit, the floor is yours.
Hi, everybody. I am so excited to be here. It's my pleasure and my honor. As mentioned before, my name is Dr. Angela Pettit. I graduated in actually January of this year. I defended my dissertation, which was entitled Authentic Leadership and Job Satisfaction Among IT, Information Technology Professionals in Educational Settings. My corporate experience has been in IT as a business systems analyst. Currently, I'm working for Thermo Fisher Scientific. I've also worked at Texas Workforce Commission, HP, and Waste Management for over 20 years now. And actually, I left corporate America when I was at Waste Management to do a 3-year sabbatical, and I traveled around the world. To date, I visited over 75 countries, including Antarctica. And it was actually during that sabbatical that I had the idea to go back to earn my doctorate. So it's been an amazing journey. I also have an MBA from Grand Canyon University, and I also have a Master's of Science in Leadership from from Grand Canyon University, and my MBA is from the University of Phoenix, and then my undergrad is in Information Systems from the University of Houston, where actually I still reside in Houston, Texas at this time. So it's my pleasure and honor again to be here. Thank you so much for the invitation, and I am looking forward to sharing my knowledge with everyone.
Dr. Spencer?
Hi, everyone. My name is Shelly Spencer, Dr. Shelly Spencer now. I also graduated in January, where the title of my research was the effects on student success and student success rates of online biology laboratories. I earned my master's degree in biology in 2003 from Cal Poly Pomona. In 2006, I earned a tenure track position in biology at a local community college, which is still my current position. I absolutely love teaching because it provides me the opportunity to help students reach their academic and professional goals. I began my doctoral journey in 2012. And shortly thereafter, after being promoted to candidacy, actually, like many of us, I decided not to continue. Well, after spending many tens of thousands of dollars on an unearned degree, in 2020, the fire was back and I found I had a real hunger for it. I was blessed to have been able to find Trident University's Education of Leadership degree completion program. And I started my first class in October of 2020. And 15 months later, thanks to the hard work that Trident put into this program, was able to successfully finish. I look forward to our discussion today. Thank you for having me.
Thanks.
Okay. Yeah. So Dr. Maranga, let me make a suggestion. Since we're still waiting for Dr. Williams, why don't we do this? Why don't we start out with a question, and we'll circle back with Dr. Williams' introduction when he gets here, just so we make sure that he properly introduces him to everyone.
Correct, and thank you so much, Mr. Sloan. Now, Dr. Pettit, Dr. Spencer, and Dr. Williams, of course, will be joining us shortly. All of you were transfer students before you got to Trident University. Why did you transfer, and how did Trident help you to succeed?
Yes. That is a great question. Dr. Spencer, did you want to take it first?
No, you please.
Okay, great. My doctoral journey was not linear. I was at a previous university. I finished all my coursework. And then once I got to the dissertation phase, the amount of approvals going back and forth, and then life happens. And then life happened again. And then life happened again. And it got to the point I was like, well, I need to figure out something else that will get me to my goal faster. And I did a spreadsheet and I compared what coursework was needed, the level of approvals, the level of engagement, the level of support. That was key to me. And that's what I found at Trident. So I decided to go ahead and try Trident. And I'm so glad I did, because I finished the program in stellar time. And I just loved every step of the way, the support that I got, the resources that were available, the feedback, which was really important to me to make me a better writer and to present my writing to the world. So hands down, I am so glad I made it. It was a difficult decision to make, but I'm so glad I made it.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Dr. Williams is on now, if you guys can hear me.
Yeah, loud and clear, Dr. Williams. Let's
Great. Okay.
Let's walk it back a slide. We'll get back to the first question. But Dr. Williams, would you like to take about a minute to introduce yourself?
Absolutely. Yes, I'm Dr. Harvey Williams. I'm a retired Lieutenant Colonel, U.S. Air Force. I did have the honor of serving in 2 military branches. And so this is a real honor for me to attend Trident. Once I left the military, I joined the Department of Defense to work with the J2 folks out there, which that's a code name for Intel. And it actually brought me here to Hawaii, where I worked at Indo-PACOM for about 4 years. And out here is where I really got an idea of what I wanted to do for my research, which I'll tell you in a minute. But it's been a
Yeah, it looks like we lost him. So let's circle back to the question.
Great working in home. That's my story. I live here with my wife, and we have 3 daughters, 1 son, and a granddaughter that's here visiting us now. So it's been a pleasure, and I'm looking forward to talking to you all.
Thank you so much, and thanks for your service.
Thank you.
Now, the question I'd asked earlier on, Dr. Williams, before you came on board, is that the 3 of you are transfer students. Why did you transfer to Trident, and how did Trident help you to succeed?
Oh, that is a great question. So can you guys actually see my picture? Because I don't see it.
Go ahead with it.
I'm using it. So
yeah,
okay.
we can. I think that the only issue is that sometimes it's a little close to your face. If you hold it back a little bit, the audience is going to be able to hear you much better.
Okay.
That's great.
Okay, good deal. Yeah, so I joined Trident. It was really it was a personal choice. It had a lot to do with geographical location. I did finish my academic work at another university, and when I came here, it was just with the time zone difference, and I did get a new chair, and the chair wasn't really familiar with the military that much. I found myself explaining acronyms and really just sort of retraining my chair. And I just, it just wasn't a good, the battle rhythms, we call it out here, just wasn't synced up for me to continue to work with a brick and mortar institution. So when I found Trident, I saw all the ways that they support the military folks, DoD folks, and people who actually have careers actively working, not only with their jobs, with their families, in the community. It just seemed like this online format was the best for me. So that's one of the reasons. And I think it had a lot to do with just the time zone change and the ability to do this work at my pace. And as I went down the road and found a great chair who was a retired, and we'll talk about chairs later, but he just happened to have the background that I had. And it just worked out very well for me.
Thank you. Dr. Pettit, you can go ahead.
I think you mean Dr. Spencer, correct?
Oh, yes. Sorry. Yes. Yes.
We went out of order that time. So I actually transferred because the program that I was originally in, when I took a break, that school closed that program down completely. So the only option that I was going to have at that school was to start over. And if I was going to do that, it definitely was not going to be at that school. So I started looking for entire new programs and ended up finding the DCP pathway, which I did not even know was a possibility. Price did come into consideration for me. I found Trident's pricing for this program to be very competitive for me. And so once I just sent in a little bit of information, Peter Lobar took it by the reins and walked me through step by step by step until my classes started. It was awesome. It was awesome. So the biggest thing that Trident did to get me to succeed initially was put good people up front to grab us when we sent information. Yes, Peter is awesome. Somebody just put it in the chat. I agree.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Those are good responses here. Now, one of the challenges that doctoral students usually have when they start the program is topic identification. What topic do they start with and where do they start from? Now, how did you identify your doctoral study topic and how did you narrow it down to what was manageable?
It's a great question. Well, I can take that first if that's okay.
Yeah, go ahead, Dr. Williams.
Yeah, sure. So I've always been interested in culture, and especially being in the military, even from my early days. And as I said, I was in two branches. So I did join the Marine Corps first, right out of high school. And right away, I can see cultural differences. As some of you may know, there's a Paris Island Marine and there's a San Diego Marine. These guys really make sure you know the differences. As a matter of fact, they call the San Diego Marines the Hollywood Marines. They gave them that nickname. But you can see cultural differences right away. And once I moved into the Air Force, I was able to work with NATO, which is a big topic today. And I could see the differences in the cultures there. I could see the interest in what the American crew members were doing, because I was in a flying organization. But the main thing is I noticed that there were some adjustments that both sides had to make. I made that observation back then. That was like the late 80s. And then finally coming here to Indo-PACOM, I noticed that the international foreign affairs officers and all of the folks working the exercises here, which is a big deal here in the biggest AOR in the world, I noticed that I had to understand not only how to adjust to them, but how the foreign nationals had to adjust to me, and the things I had to do to understand the process of adapting to that culture. So that's how I went about finding this to write about. And the name of my research is examining the cross-cultural adaptation of Department of Defense leaders in joint multinational military training environments. So that's how I became interested in it. And I narrowed the topic down to this area, the Asian Pacific AOR. So that's pretty much where I am at that.
Very good. Dr. Pettit?
Yes, certainly. The journey to find my topic, I always had an interest in leadership. At that time, it was transformational leadership. And then once I started researching other dissertations and different journal articles, I kind of started looking more into authentic leadership. And I realized that there was a gap in the literature when it came to studying IT professionals. Me, for example, I wanted to get something that was a little bit more familiar to me. And like I said before, I actually left corporate America, so I didn't have a high level of job satisfaction. I was kind of bored. And I wanted to find out what the research and what the literature said about that in terms of being an IT professional. Where's the job satisfaction? Does leadership styles impact that? And after a myriad of reading a lot of articles, that's how I solidified studying authentic leadership and job satisfaction among IT professionals. So it was definitely a journey to find that gap in the literature in regard to something that really spoke to me in my situation, something that I was really passionate about and something that I was interested in, and that had a gap in the literature as well.
Thank you.
I identified my doctoral study topic by just living it. I'm a college professor. I'm on a community college campus. COVID had hit. We are not normally an online school. And so all of us transitioned. This was a problem in biology because we don't like our labs being online traditionally. So it provided a really unique opportunity to collect data on how student success was affected by online learning in these science laboratories, which we never would have had the opportunity to do otherwise because faculty just simply were not willing to transition those labs. So that's how I found my topic. It was a problem that existed on campus in my department, and it was perfect timing.
Thank you. Mr. Siloane, do we have anything from the audience?
There aren't any questions right now. And if, as a reminder, if you have questions, just type them in the box. I did get a message from someone already about a question, so you send them in the question box or raise your hand. But we can move on to the next question, and we'll start with Dr. Pettit. What tips can you share that helped you identify credible relevant sources for your study?
Oh, yeah, that's a great question. So for me, I stayed within journals. I really looked at what we had in our Trident University library, which was very, very helpful. I stuck with different journals. Of course, there were some books that I read because with authentic leadership, it actually started in corporate America. That's where some of the seminal sources were. But I took that, I looked at that, and then I also correlated that to the different journal articles that I found within the library.
Very good. And what helped you to organize your resources or your articles?
Actually, I am very old school. Excel, Excel and Word, mostly Excel spreadsheets. I'm an IT person, so I always deal with spreadsheets. So Excel really helped me. And there were a couple other applications and apps that I tried, but it just didn't do the job for me. So I just kept Excel.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I will say this. I did organize it using a literature review matrix as well, where I just took all the different articles and I compared and listed out, all the important points in those articles, the type of methodology that was used, where I got it from, and things of that nature. So that helped me keep track of things as well and to be more organized.
Excellent. Dr. Spencer?
So I actually also use the library quite a bit. Of course, there are peer-reviewed articles. That's what I was looking for. Also for recency. I love the fact that we can search for specific years or groups of years. I did find that Google Scholar had a really cool feature where it told you if you use Google Scholar, not Google now, but Google Scholars, it will tell you how many times that article has been referenced by other peer-reviewed articles. And so that lent some credibility to the article I was looking at also. Now, I was laughing when Dr. Pettit was saying she's old school because I literally printed out every article and then had stacks of paper all over my kitchen table with sticky notes on the top for which area they were. And then I used a Word document. So I went really old school. It worked.
Very good. This is the last question for you, Dr. Spencer. Now, on this question, how did you know it was time to stop researching for more articles and start writing?
That's a great question. When the story was complete, I literally did what Dr. Williams, I heard him say it was Daniel Sloan said he had read hundreds of articles for one chapter. And at some point, if you're writing it, the story is complete. Everything that you need to tell somebody about this part of the topic is done. That's when to stop. When there's a missing piece, then it's time to keep going. When it doesn't make sense to somebody listening to it, then it's not done.
Thanks for your response. Dr. Williams, if you could share a few tips here and there that help you identify the credible, relevant sources.
Absolutely. So most of my articles were military journals and blogs. I used professional blogs for groups that actually were studying what I was studying. So for example, I used Global Cognition. It was one of the blogs I used, and they studied cultures. As a matter of fact, Dr. Rasmussen did a great study using special forces from the Army. And what she did was she went around and talked to over 200 professional military folks. And she got their information on basically how do they adapt to foreign environments. She compiled all of that and came up with sort of a checklist and a grid on how to observe, how to teach your units, how to learn how to learn cultures. So from that website, of course, they have a lot of references, a lot of articles, books, things of this nature. One book was Save Your Ammo by Dr. Rasmussen, and that talks about cultures overseas and how soldiers, sailors, Marines, airmen adjusted to Afghanistan, Iraq, and all of these type of hotspots in the world. And I'm quite sure right now it's a key time to start using some of the expertise that Dr. Rasmussen put in those books. Also, to piggyback off my two colleagues, the library is a good source. Use them. They're really designed to help you research, if you know what I mean. Most librarians, that's what they do. I fell in love with the U.S. Marine Corps Library here, the Kaneohe City Library, and when I was on the East Coast, the Stokes County Library. They all helped me out, gave me private rooms to set up my stuff and look up things. So those were the type of things I did. And I also do use Google Scholar, because you do get you get updated information, and you can manipulate how to find that data. It'll ask you, do you want a full article? Do you want a dissertation only? And you can customize what you're looking for. And our TLC webpage is perfect for that, because you can always go to that Google Scholar right through our own webpage. You don't have to even leave our TLC webpage for that. So there's multiple ways to find articles and fine tune what you're looking for. But just find your, I guess your study subject. Look for blogs, look for magazines, journals that actually talk about that. And they will lead you to other articles, other books, and other people to look up.
Very good, a good response there. Well, after you identified all these resources and organized them as you've all shared and stopped somewhere because you had already researched enough. Now, Dr. Williams, how did you go about synthesizing the resources?
Okay, when I saw similarities and I started to see the same type of answers, the same type of views, I thought I was reaching a point of saturation. And once I did that, that's when I started to synthesize, because you gotta, at one point in your life, and I said this the other day, you gotta stop reading and start writing. So I had to just make sure that the key points were taken. I made the key points. I told the story, and I ended the story with a solution. So I figured if I hit those key points out of all these articles, and you can't write about everything, and trust me, there's a few I wish I would have had, and we all look at that. You can't put everything in. So I took key points from maybe smaller articles, didn't write the whole thing, but made sure that if it was important enough, I used it. So that's what I just looked at. If I got the key points and I thought I told the story to someone who's not familiar with cross-cultural adaptation, then I felt at that point I can move on, and it was narrowed down enough.
Thank you.
And Dr. Maranga, to step in, because I have a question from the audience. And just before I ask that, this is a question that also may be appropriate for some of the Trident faculty members who are in the audience. So you know who you are. And so please listen to the question. If you have anything to add to this, just raise your hand or send me a message and I'll unmute so you can answer. But the question is, this is coming from a prospective student who's considering the DBA or PhD in business programs. They're worried about not being able to find enough interviewees or survey takers for data collection. And they're not good at asking others for favors. For DBA, they're worried if they change jobs, they may lose access to people in their company. For the PhD in business, they're unclear on how to obtain data. Any tips on collecting enough data through the multi-year research? For the, I'm going to call on Dr. Spencer, at least to answer the part about, maybe some tips on finding interviewees or survey takers and how to better engage with, people for research, if you have any advice there.
I used secondary data as my resource for the data resource. So it's not going to, unfortunately, I can't help them. What I would tell somebody to do is talk to a faculty member there or another learner who's already graduated and used interviews as their study data, for their study data. And I believe Dr. Pettit did Actually, Dr. Williams did too, I believe. So they would be better at answering questions about surveys than I would.
I thought I had everyone's studying research methods memorized, but I did not. But Dr. Pettit, you want to take that?
Yes, sure. So actually what I did, I did a quantitative research. So what I started doing, even when I first entered the program, I started connecting with people on LinkedIn who would potentially be a part of my sample. And of course, this is over a period of a number of years. And when it finally came down, time for me to start getting people to take my survey, LinkedIn is where I started. I reached out to people, groups, I posted all the time on my profile. I started connecting with people and things of that nature. And that's how I got the people to take my survey.
Dr. Williams?
Oh, yes, and this is a great question. So in my case, I tried to start big at first. I wanted to really look at some of the leadership in INDOPACOM, which is a huge headquarters. And I realized that, some people were willing to talk to me and some weren't. It was coming slow. So what I did was I thought about the mission of INDOPACOM, and I thought about the units that supported INDOPACOM. So instead of looking at INDOPACOM itself, I picked a smaller military unit and looked at their joint staff and started looking at how I would ask questions. So after speaking with Dr. Deegan, who led our first 3 classes in this program, she told me that she asked, did I ever try to look at online interviews, especially with COVID going on? It might be a better method depending on the unit. And bingo, that was it, because the units were still in that COVID period where things were sort of etchy on the protocol of where folks needed to be. So when I asked and this is important, whoever you get in the front door, if that front door person, my front door person was a protocol officer for this unit. That person was very cooperative. They were a retired major. And so they understood what I was researching, and that took it from there. So one thing about online interviews, people will quickly do those. They know they don't have to speak to you. They can pretty much write their feelings, and I got some really good data from that. I was very satisfied that it was an email interview. So that's the way I did it. I had most of the staff. The staff had about 12 people, and I got 9 to come on board as participants. And it worked out very well. Got some great data from them. So I used online interviews, and I thought that was an excellent choice for my study.
Thank you.
Great, thanks. And then I'm actually gonna call on Dr. Indira Guzman next. She volunteered to answer the question. And Dr. Guzman, I sent you the full question in the chat, and I'm unmuting you right now. So thank you for volunteering, and you should be able to speak.
Okay,
now.
hello, good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear, thanks.
Okay, very good. So this is a great question, and in general, it's good that students, worry about where to get data from. And as we have seen from the panelists today, they all had to come up with a plan. And that's pretty much what happens. It's a process, and I'm glad again that somebody's thinking about that in advance. Now, in terms of in the DBA, we do a case study. It's usually data from one organization, and many students have used data from small organizations. And I would encourage the prospective student to visit some of the titles of already approved doctoral study projects, where we can see that our students conducted a study in small companies, like in the community, that help the community, but also allow the student to conduct the research. So we have, I think that's the best way, and we provide suggestions, we provide some brainstorming sessions where we can help you think what would be best. Many students use their own companies, that's true, but it doesn't have to be the company where you work. It could also be a place in your community. So that's for the DBA. In terms of the PhD and using data from services like SurveyMonkey or Mechanical Turk or Qualtrics, it is common, it's accepted in the literature. There are publications, journal publications that have used that kind of data. Similarly, there are dissertations and doctoral work that have used data from those services. So it is already acceptable. What the student needs to do is only discuss the pros and cons, because as in any practice, you have to discuss what are the pros and cons of using that data, but always be transparent and discuss the process that you're following. I hope that helps.
Great. Great. Thank you for that, Dr. Guzman. And again, Dr. Guzman, she's the Doctoral Studies Director in our Glenn R. Jones College of Business. So let's hand it back to Dr. Maranga for a next question. And I believe we'll be starting with Dr. Spencer for that.
Yeah, good response there, and thank you so much. Now, what resources, when you really reflect on the entire program, when you studied and when you completed your doctoral program, what resources helped you to succeed in the entire program at Trident? You may identify a few, of course. You may not be able to identify all of them, but which ones were these?
Excuse me. Since I was a dissertation completion student, the number one thing for me was that dissertation template. It was awesome. It really, under each section, says exactly what is expected of you. And again, that was provided to me before I even started by Peter Lobar. The EDD program handbook is invaluable. My instructors, all of those were great resources. I didn't get the opportunity to talk to my success coach too much. I think it's called a success counselor, but that's also very useful. Dr. Williams mentioned, and I agree, that the website was so helpful, the way that it's organized. Everything is in one location. I found all of those things to be very, very beneficial.
Thank you. Dr. Williams?
Yes, just to piggyback on Dr. Spencer, yes, the doctoral program handbook was excellent. It actually has a map in the back that maps out everything that's needed, that's required of you at each phase of this program. So you study that chart and you go by that chart, you will not fall behind. The other thing I would add to that is the excellent writing handbook that Dr. Deegan put together. I think it was dated 2016, unless it's been updated. But that is an excellent source. If you're not familiar with APA, or you need to just refamiliarize yourself with APA method, that's a great book to look at. And it gives you just about every example of any type of site that you want to use. Because some people don't realize you can cite a movie, a book, a speech, a seminar. All of that can be cited if you want to use it in your study. You just need to put down where you got it from and just properly cite it. And it's definitely in that handbook. So I would look at that handbook and pay attention to it. Another thing I say, lastly, I say be a friend of YouTube. Look at some other folks' dissertations and how they present them and some of the questions that the professors are asking, and you'll see that you'll again gain your value. You'll get a sort of a feel for.
I think we lost Dr. Williams. He's back. I think we lost Dr. Williams. So Dr. Pettit, probably you could go ahead.
Yes, the resources that really supported me through this program, definitely our library, definitely the EDD handbook, the template, and actually that the help and support of my chair, that was invaluable. I really needed that feedback. Looking at YouTube as well, especially for the SPSS, because I did a quantitative study. Looking at those different videos really helped me as well. So there are a myriad of resources that I use to support me in this doctoral journey. And like I said, especially that APA manual.
Thank you.
There was another one that I think I mentioned, the Purdue OWL website as well, which kind of broke down the APA style and things of that nature as well. That helped as well.
That was a great one, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, and look at the EDD resource page as well. It has great resources there.
Yes,
so,
yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Very good.
Which handbook was mentioned?
The APA handbook.
But the other gentleman before you.
The writing handbook from Dr. D in 2016. Doctoral writing handbook.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yes.
Very good responses there. Now, and thank you for your responses here. One of the really challenges that the doctoral students face in the process or in their journey is how to manage time. How did you manage your time throughout the doctoral program? Dr. Williams, if we could start with you.
Oh, absolutely. So before you narrow down how to manage your time, you're going to make a lot of mistakes, okay? And don't feel flustered about that. I mean, you're never going to get this perfectly timed. But what you want to do is try to have a roadmap. So what Dr. Deegan suggested for us to do was to punch out a roadmap, and pretty much a 12-month roadmap. And I used that roadmap. So we started with all of the chapters that we start for academics, but the roadmap really gets interesting when you start getting to data collection, data analysis, and start writing first draft, second draft, final draft, and your actual defense. I had that map sorted all the way out to the 10th of December is when I put down as a date that I wanted to target for my defense. And I ended up doing the defense on the 21st of December. So I was pretty close to the area. And because I followed that to the T. And if anyone wants to leave an address with Dr. Sloan, anybody, I can show you an example of what I used. And you can just copy it if you like.
Thank you. Dr. Pettit?
Sure. One thing about me, roadmaps are great, but I tend to work off of like action items and deliverables. And my goal was, what do I need to do to finish? And working closely with my chair, getting appropriate feedback, taking his feedback, incorporating that feedback. That's how I diligently focused on that.
Thank you.
Right.
Dr. Spencer?
Okay.
Really try to work ahead on the idea that something can always come up. So since we have access to the entire class, all the assignments from day one, then I really started trying to work all the way through anytime I had time. If I had a weekend, I wasn't out playing. I was working. I did procrastinate. There were many days when I was like, man, I really could have been more productive. But as long as I was ahead in my assignment, then it worked out really well. Everything that was assigned, my goal was whatever that due date is, have it done before then. Also, a break was a wonderful opportunity for me to do the next step, whatever that step was, even though it hadn't been so I knew, ooh, I'm going to be starting chapter 2 in the next class. I was already almost done with it by the time the class started. I was ready for my draft to go to my mentor or my teacher. So I would encourage you to work ahead whenever possible. Don't stop. I did a lot of lighting a fire under my butt talk too. Are you ready to waste the money for this class too, or you want to get up and do something? You ready to fail again? You ready to get up and do something? That really just made me get up and go, look, I'm tired, but I'm going to sit down and just write something right now. It helps.
Absolutely. Dr. Kennedy, can I add something to that?
Sure.
Okay. Yeah. So with the roadmap, it does include the feedback and things of this nature. So that's built in. I know that's going to happen in the chair being involved. One thing I would say as far as time management, actually time, this is an online course. You can do this no matter where you are in the world. You can be, somewhere up north, the beaches of Ipanema. You can do something. So always take your computer with you, or at least a handheld device where you can log on. You'll have your library in your hands. You'll have all the phone numbers and contacts. You'll have your classmates at the cohort that you're in. You'll have all their contacts. So just keep that in mind. I do piggyback on Dr. Spencer. Stay ahead. And I'm going to tell you, the topics are very interesting. So you will not be bored doing the topics. They're very interesting. And if you're visiting someone, let them know what you're doing. Spend 45 minutes to an hour and a half away from them for a while, work on something and come back. You can do that. And people who understand what you're doing, they'll be glad to grant you that time. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you for those good responses. Now, we all face challenges when we are, and when I was doing my doctoral journey, and I'm sure you are. What one challenge would you share that you faced during your doctoral journey, and how did you address it? And this could be anything. It could be anything from a reading block or writing block or whatever it is. And how did you address it?
Okay.
Dr. Pettit?
Yeah, that is actually a great question. Like I said in my intro, life happens, and definitely life happened to me. And even more recently, unfortunately, my mom went missing right in the middle of my writing my dissertation last year. And at that point, I couldn't even think. We found her, thank God, she has Alzheimer's, but we did find her. And at that point, I knew I had to regroup and get my mindset right, because I had to refocus and take care of her. I was actually living in 2 different cities at the same time. So I actually uprooted my life in one city and moved back to Houston full time. So I had a lot of things, and this was COVID. So everything was up in the air, a lot of uncertainty. But at the root of it, I stayed prayed up. I stayed in communication with my chair, and I took breaks when I needed to, because otherwise I would just be too burnt out. And once I knew that, hey, I can do this, I'm going to keep going. And I did it. And I'm so glad I did. It was a challenge. It was hard, emotionally, spiritually, physically. It was hard, but it was definitely worth it to keep going.
Thank you. Dr. Spencer?
At the risk of giving TMI, I'm going to tell you, 2 weeks after I had my second COVID shot, when I was in the program, I had 3 strokes at 48 years old. God. Within a month after that, I had a heart attack. I cannot tell you how terrifying it is to face death like that, particularly because I have a 12-year-old child and it's just me and him in the world. There are no aunties, no uncles, no grandparents, no nothing. It's just me and him. So I do understand what it is to have challenges in this program. Unlike before when I had challenges, I was hungry for this. And so honestly, facing death, I thought, who the heck needs to finish a doctoral program? Forget about it. Enjoy your days. But I found that finishing this was such a goal for me that, again, that light the fire under the behind thing, it just kept me pushing forward, even through those things. I did tell my mentor, my teachers at that time, that that was happening, but I asked, do not give me an extension unless I let you know I need one. So the day after placing a stent in my heart, I was in class doing work, and somehow getting another step closer was healing because it was for me. It really, just keep moving through it one step at a time. Pretty soon you'll find that you're on the other side of the mountain. And that's what happens.
Thank you for sharing, Mr. Sloan.
Thank you, Dr. Maranga. Yeah, we have one question from the audience, and then we'll wrap things up since we're getting to the top of the hour, but I'm going to unmute it. And Eunice, are you ready to ask your question?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Getting a bit of an echo right now.
On feedback.
I'm having trouble hearing you now. Either that or you could type it out and then type out your question, and then I can dictate it to the panel. We're unable to hear you right now.
That can happen, Ms. Johnson, Lightsey, if another person has
Can you hear me?
Zoom on.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's both me and my husband both are in the doctoral program, and he's on his computer and I'm on mine. Can you hear me better now?
Perfect.
Yes.
Okay. The question I have, I was very confused because I'm in the EDD program, and my assumption was that it was more so me taking a particular area of interest and the next step further. But it seems more like the PhD, because I have to do the surveys and then I have to get that translated. So I'm trying to get more understanding. Is it more or less like the PhD, or is there really a difference?
Dr. Maranga, is that question you want to take?
Yeah, I can. I'll answer it, and my colleagues who are here probably can also chip in. Now, the EDD program is a practitioner-based program. It's really not a PhD, which is research-based, purely research-based. But both doctoral programs have kind of almost the same format. You will have to collect the data, you will have to analyze it, and you have to collect it and analyze it. So in terms of the rigor and the data sources, and there's really minimal difference. However, it is a practitioner-based program, and unlike the really PhD programs, because in PhD programs, if you are in a PhD program, you can really conduct research on anything else which has nothing to do with your concentration or area of focus, unlike really doctoral practitioner-based programs. So really, it does not exempt you from using all these data sources, including the interviews or questionnaires, or if you are using secondary data. But we can have, you can probably send an email and send an email to myself. I'll get in touch with the dean, and we can always set up a meeting and discuss with you in detail.
Yeah. Great. Thank you, Dr. Maranga. I traded emails with her already, and I'll pass that along to you and Dr. Smith. Right. So at the top of the hour, so we're going to wrap up tonight's session, and I know there's a few questions left over in the chat box, and we're saving all of those, and we'll follow up with you individually. Really want to thank everyone for attending, and a huge thank you to our 3 alumni, Dr. Spencer, Dr. Pettit, and Dr. Williams, for sharing, their experiences, their knowledge this evening. And thank you so much, Dr. Maranga, for hosting this event. And if you have any questions, you can reach out to us. We'll have information on the screen in a moment. There's our core webinar page where you can access our archived webinars. We have about 50 core webinars. If you have any questions, you can reach me. My email is daniel.sloan@trident.edu, and we'll have a recording of this ready for you by early next week. Thank you so much, everyone, and have a great evening.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone. Success
Bye-bye.
to you.